All right, Nico, can you say, welcome to another episode of Healthy Births, Happy Babies?
It's a happy episode. Happy babies.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Healthy Births, Happy Babies. I'm Dr. Jay Warren. I'm a prenatal and pediatric chiropractor here at the CAP Wellness Center in San Diego. And as the host of this podcast, if you're a new listener, I just want to tell you that this podcast is all about bringing you information about having a healthy pregnancy, a safe, gentle, natural birth, as well as a great, healthy recovery in the postpartum period, and giving you information about how to be the best parent you can be with your new kiddo that you brought into the world. And if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you know this. And if you haven't yet left a rating and review in iTunes, I would really, really appreciate if you do so. Those ratings and reviews allows the Healthy Births, Happy Babies podcast to come up even sooner in the searches, so that more and more parents like yourself can get this information. It'll be more visible to them. So I really appreciate if you have already done that. And if you haven't, I thank you in advance for doing it now. It's super easy. Just go into iTunes and leave a rating and review. So thank you. On today's episode, we're doing something I've never done before. We're over 100 episodes in, and this is my first panel discussion where I'm going to have 4 different guests on, and we're going to be talking about the Climbing Out of the Darkness event that's being held this year. Climbing Out of the Darkness event is something that's been sponsored, or it's an event put on by the Postpartum Support International Group, and there's going to be an event locally here in San Diego, but as the name implies, it's all over the country and all over the world. And it's bringing awareness and raising awareness to maternal mental health illnesses. It's not only focusing on postpartum depression awareness, but postpartum anxiety and OCD, postpartum post-traumatic stress, postpartum psychosis, perinatal bipolar mood disorders, and pregnancy depression and anxiety. And as we'll be talking with one of our guests, we're also going to be talking about the mental health support for dads afterwards, because there's some pretty alarming statistics that dads are suffering from depression and anxiety in the postpartum period as well. And as a dad, I know I want to make sure they're getting support as well. So let me pause for a brief moment for this message, and I'll come back and introduce our panelists. Hi, it's Dr. J, and I am so excited to announce to you that my new online program is now available. It's called Connecting with Baby During Pregnancy, and what it's going to do is going to teach you methods proven by the latest research in pre- and perinatal psychology and epigenetics that are going to allow you to have not only a calmer and more relaxed pregnancy and to have a gentler, more natural birth, but on the other side of things, you're going to feel more confident as a mom, and you're going to be able to soothe your baby that much easier, because when you're able to bond with baby and connect right now during your pregnancy, it's only going to translate on the other side to just being that much more connected and be able to help them calm and soothe. It's a really important thing. So head on over to drj.warren.com/CWB, that's Connecting with Baby, and you can learn all about it. All right, so as I said, we're going to have 4 guests on today. They're all local here to San Diego and involved in the Climbing Out of the Darkness event in 2018. Locally, it's going to be here in Pacific Beach at Kate Sessions Park on June 23rd. It's a Saturday at 9 a.m., but there's events going to be held all over the world, so I will let you know where you can find out on an updated map of where things are going to be in your neck of the woods. But first, let me introduce each one of them briefly. So first, we have Julie Lopez. She is a lawyer, a civil litigator here in San Diego, that she herself had suffered from postpartum depression and then found the Climb Out of Darkness event, and now she's elevated into the co-organizer of the group. She has a lot of information to share. And Dr. Danny Singley is another panelist. He's been on the podcast before. He is a psychologist. He's involved with the Postpartum Support International Group. He's on the board there. but he is also a specialist in transition to fatherhood and fathers' mental health issues. So he's going to be talking about that. And Jen Varela is back on the podcast. She, you remember, is a sleep coach. She's talked on the podcast a number of times about infant sleep and toddler sleep issues, but she has taken on the president-elect position of the Postpartum Health Alliance, which is co-partnering to support the Climbing Out of the Darkness event here in San Diego. So she's here to talk about that. And last but not least, we have Shelby Patterson on the podcast panelist. She is the reigning Mrs. California in the United States here, and she is also a postpartum depression survivor. She's a mom of 3 kids, and through her experience and recovering and overcoming it, she's using her platform as Mrs. California to raise awareness of the maternal health issues that are prevalent in our communities, and is now involved in the Climbing Out of the Darkness event. So with no further ado, let me switch over to my conversation with them. Although I will note there are 2 different things that I want to tell you about the audio, and I'm going to apologize for it in advance. One is, you might be able to tell from my voice too, I'm recovering from a cold, and it was worse on the day that we recorded. So my voice is definitely a little off, sounds a little different. But then also the technical issues with having 4 different people on the line. There was some audio that doesn't sound perfect. I cleaned it up as much as possible. I do think it's tolerable, but on a couple of different people when they're speaking, there's some background noise that I hope isn't too distracting. The message is definitely well worth it. So bear with some of the audio technical difficulties that we had. But I think I cleaned it up enough. Just wanted to tell you that in advance. So now, with no further ado, let me switch over to our conversation with our panelists. All right. Well, welcome to the podcast. I have a huge panel today. This is the first time I've ever had 4 other people on the line for a podcast episode. So this is exciting. You heard already the bios and the information about each of these people, but I just want each one of you to say a quick hello so we know who's talking, and then we'll be able to jump in and talk about climbing out of the darkness. So Julie, please say hello.
Hello, I'm Julie Lopez. I am a civil litigation attorney in San Diego, California, and a proud survivor of postpartum depression and anxiety.
Very nice. Welcome. And Dr. Singley.
So yeah, I'm Danny Singley. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I specialize in men's issues. And within that, my big focus is on men's perinatal mental health. So how guys go from dude to dad.
Very nice. Welcome back, Dr. Singley. And Shelby.
Hi, I'm Shelby Patterson. I live in San Diego with my husband and our 3 beautiful children. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I'm the current Mrs. California 2018.
Very nice. Congratulations and welcome.
Thank you.
And Jen, please say hello again.
Hi, I'm Jen Varela, and I'm a sleep coach with Sugar Night Night, but I'm also the president-elect for Postpartum Health Alliance here in San Diego, and also a survivor of PMATS.
Very nice. Well, welcome back as well. So for listeners, if you've listened to past episodes, you've heard Dr. Singley. Danny's been on early on in the podcast talking about transition of fatherhood issues. And then Jen's been on a couple of times. Very popular topic, trying to get our kiddos to sleep. So I welcome you 2 back. And Shelby and Julie, it's great to have you here as well, because we're talking about something that's really important. I've done a number of episodes on postpartum and perinatal mood disorders in the past, but this is an event that you are all coming together to really make a difference. So I guess as a co-organizer, Julie, please tell us more about what this Climbing Out of the Darkness event is all about.
Sure. So I am, like you said, Dr. J, a co-organizer this year of the San Diego Climb Out of the Darkness. It's actually an international event that happens all over the United States and in different countries. And the purpose of the event is to raise awareness of the very prevalent and very treatable postpartum mood disorders that a lot of new parents experience. So it's just a day where we invite the community to get together and talk a little bit about, how important it is to work towards removing the stigma related to these diseases. And we do a little walk just to kind of symbolize togetherness and supporting the parents who might be struggling currently or in the future. And just to kind of communicate a message that it kind of what's reflected in the title of the event, Climbing Out of the Darkness, kind of to shine light on postpartum mood disorders so that more people, feel comfortable and confident in seeking treatment when they're experiencing these issues.
Right. And you yourself had issues with postpartum depression as well as a mom, right?
I did. So
Yeah.
my journey actually started with my first pregnancy, which I lost in, and
I'm
I
sorry.
thank you. I started to have a major increase in anxiety and around getting pregnant and having a baby. I'm also a civil litigation attorney, so have quite a stressful day job, which kind of exacerbated the stress that I was under. So I lost my first pregnancy, and then I got pregnant with my son, who's now 5 years old. My anxiety just continued to increase, and I had him, and I was struggling a lot still with the postpartum anxiety. I kind of knew something wasn't quite right, but I wasn't sure if it was like the normal baby blues or if it was something more serious that I should get treatment for. And I got more and more anxious, and that turned into some pretty severe depression. And I was actually seeing a wonderful psychologist throughout this time period, but I was so ashamed of what I was experiencing as a mom that I really wasn't talking about that with him. I had been in a car accident, and we kind of were focusing on that because I felt like something was wrong with me and that I was doing a bad job as a mom. And even with, the person that I trust so much as my mental health provider, I was ashamed even to talk about it with him. So I finally did, though, step up to the next level of help. I started taking antidepressants, and I got better really quickly. Within just a few months, I felt just like, I would say 90% back to myself. And looking back on that experience, I realized that the barrier to getting treatment was my shame and my fear. And I really felt, that's just a silly reason to have so many people out there who are struggling with these illnesses. It's so prevalent, like I said, it's so treatable. It's not like a disease that we don't have treatment for, but people are afraid to reach out to get that help and that support. So when I heard about the Climb Out of the Darkness event, I thought, well, this is great. What a great way to communicate to the community that this is not something to be ashamed of. And I went to my first Climb Out of the Darkness event when my son was 2. He was 2. And it was a tiny little event, and a mama who was still really in the throes of her struggle had put it on all by herself. And I think going to that event and seeing other parents who were struggling and feeling a little bit more normalized and accepted was the last piece in my recovery. It was kind of the last step that I needed to really feel whole again. And so I decided to help plan the Climb Out of the Darkness event the following year, which was even more fabulous as a co-organizer, just to share my experience and let other parents know that it's totally okay and common to be going through something like a postpartum mental illness. So I'm so thrilled to have co-organizers Jen and Danny and Shelby helping this year, and I think it's going to be a fantastic event.
Yeah, I mean, just from a couple of years ago was your first involvement, right? Where it was a smaller event in San Diego, and now we have a whole team of people helping out. And
Yes.
I know from past episodes, like that is like, just as you said, like there's so much treatment available. It's so common, but nobody's talking about it. So I appreciate all of you coming on to raise awareness. I mean, that's what the whole event is about. And Danny, I'm sure you know, Dr. Singley, I should say, with your involvement with PSI as also as a psychologist, that this is a really big problem, and this is something that could really make a big difference.
It's an international issue, and most of the prevalence research that looks cross-culturally and into different cultures shows that it's very consistent that if you look across mood and anxiety disorders for women, it's 1 in 7 will develop some sort of depression or anxiety or OCD or like that. And 1 in 7 is a really big public mental health number, and that for fathers, postpartum depression hits 1 in 10. So if you just do that, and for anxiety, it's even higher. Antenatally, it's between 4 and 16, or postpartum, it's between 4 and 18% will get some kind of anxiety spectrum disorder. So it's really, I love Julie's story because it really sort of, it's emblematic of a lot of moms and dads' experiences, and it also being empowered and doing something about it.
Right. And it's the group that is putting on this on international.
Yeah, so I'm a longtime member, and I'm on the board of Postpartum Support International, and so we're the umbrella organization putting on the Climb Out of Darkness, and we are international. We have several other countries involved and a lot in the United States. And interested folks can go to our website, which is postpartum.net, and search on Climb Out of Darkness, and we have that shows where all the different climbs are. And our specific San Diego, we have a Facebook page. And so if you're here, happen to be here local, you want to get involved, you can go to Facebook and just look up Climb Out San Diego, and there we are. And for here locally, PSI is partnering with the Postpartum Health Alliance, of which Jen is the president-elect. And that's a pretty typical arrangement. We have a lot of different partnerships, and it's thrilling to be able to work with folks that are here, boots on the ground, doing the work locally as well.
Right. So Jen, tell us more about like how you've gotten involved with PHA and like what role you're taking in helping this this Climb Out of Darkness event.
Yeah, well, I am honored to be sitting at this table, and so I am the president-elect of Postpartum Health Alliance in San Diego, and my role really this year is to learn, right? So when I'm ready next year to take on the position of president. And one of the things I just love about Postpartum Health Alliance here in San Diego is that our focus is really on educating and then connecting resources and support for families. And so we're a nonprofit. We've been around 21 years. And with the Climb, one of the things that's lovely about how this is all set up is 75% of the funds that are raised with the Climb stay local. So we will get to benefit from that, which I think is terrific. And so we do trainings on screening. That's one of the things that is kind of crazy about all of this, right? Is that only 15% of the women that are suffering with perinatal mood and anxiety disorders actually get treatment. Part of that is, I think, when you look at the previous term that most people are familiar with is postpartum depression, that makes it sound like it only happens after you have your baby, which it actually can happen before you have your baby while you're pregnant, and that it's depression. So then when you have those intrusive thoughts and anxious thoughts, you're not thinking, oh, well, this must not be postpartum depression. And so I really even though PMADS is kind of a funny term and perinatal mood and anxiety disorder is sort of a mouthful, I think it's really appropriate that's where we're headed with the terminology. And so that's a big part of what PHA is trying to do, Postpartum Health Alliance, is to bring awareness so that we can get the treatment, so that we can, have help, because you don't have to do this alone. So we offer a screening form on our website. So if moms are wondering or dads are wondering, are they struggling with this? They can go and look at that questionnaire themselves. And then we also have a warm line. So, if somebody who wants to kind of talk about like, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. Is this, PMADS? So it's really great. And then we have a list of referrals and support groups. And so it's a phenomenal resource for here in San Diego.
And is this the first time that PHA's been involved in a Climb Out of the Darkness event? Or is that something that's been going on ongoingly?
Yeah, so that's what's so funny about this whole thing is, so in 2016, when Julie was coordinating through my business, Sugar Night, I work with a lot of moms who are struggling with PMADS, because sleep's a big piece of all of that. And so, and having also been a survivor myself with both my miscarriages and both my pregnancies, I have a huge heart for the families that are struggling with that. So when she put that out, I'm like, oh, let's do it together. So Julie and I connected in 2016, had a great time doing that. And then when it kind of circled back around under the umbrella of PSI, and then Julie was doing it again, and here now I'm on the board of PHA. It was just sort of like all the planets aligned, and we got to we get to do this together again, which is fun. So in the official capacity, yes, this is really the first time that Postpartum Health Alliance is getting to do it. So I get to wear two hats.
Nice.
Yeah.
And the great thing about the climb, which Jen mentioned what's happening in San Diego, which is that a lot of the funds raised stay local. That's the case for a lot of the climbs all across the United States. So PSI is a fantastic organization that does a lot of the awareness raising. And so some of the funds go there, but in a lot of the climbs across the world, some of the funds also get to stay local, which is great too.
So, Dr. Singley, is that common that there's local organizations being involved in this international organization doing things locally, or is it just that San Diego is really lucky to have people like yourselves, I should say, coming together? Are there other organizations around the world doing these, helping out with the climbs?
There are. Well, of course, we're certainly very lucky to have Postpartum Health Alliance in San Diego to work with. We are seeing an uptick in the number of local organizations that are interested in working with PSI and PSI coordinators or points of contact through PSI to do climbs. So this is the second year that PSI has sponsored the climb. It originated with Postpartum Progress, who had done it for a number of years. And so this is just our second year of collecting analytics about number of people participating, number of climbs, number of organizations, and funds raised, and so on. But compared to last year, yeah, we have seen more organizations. And in fact, we specifically created a fundraising sharing option, where, as Jen mentioned earlier, when we partner with a local organization, whatever funds are raised, they keep a big percent. I think it's like 70% or something of whatever funds are raised. And so we're absolutely working to improve organizations and incentivize them to do it, because typically folks at the local level are much better positioned to provide that hands-on help that tends to be so beneficial.
Right. And that collaboration, it can only make it grow and grow. And I know that dads are getting involved as well. There's the component that I want to come back to you about to acknowledge the dads and that role of things. But Shelby, I wanted to turn to you, and you yourself, with your 3 kids, had suffered with postpartum depression as well. Did you have that with each of the pregnancies, or was it just with the one?
I did have it with all of them, but it progressively got better with each one, because I was able to take steps and talk to my provider before I had the baby. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
I was able to, my first one, what happened was I was a new mom and I had no idea what was going on. I had a really healthy pregnancy, a normal delivery, and I had my son, and just kind of our worlds came crashing down. I had really bad postpartum depression, and I was really hesitant to get on medication. But also, I think what influenced that a little bit is my husband is in law enforcement, so he sees a lot of the chemical dependencies with drugs. But I do believe that there's a time and a place, and I think that I use them appropriately. So I was able to recover with him fully. And then with our second pregnancy, I got on the medication in my third trimester so that we could kind of get ahead of that along with the counseling. And same with the third pregnancy. So I think they could have gotten worse, but because I took the appropriate steps, it was able to get better.
Right. And was it like with Julie sharing that the first time, like it took a long time to seek help?
She was saying about her symptoms and her feelings were very similar to mine. I just felt guilty for feeling that way when I had, like I said, a perfectly healthy baby, a normal delivery, and my husband and I really wanted this. But fortunately, my husband saw a lot of the signs, and it took me about 6 months after my son was born for me to go actually talk about it and get some help. And still, I didn't, when I say talk about it, I talked to my husband and my provider, but I didn't tell my friends, or it's so sad that it's embarrassing for us to feel that way when we have a medical condition. So my husband asked me, I was so hesitant to take meds, and he asked me if I had diabetes, if I would take insulin. And I said, absolutely. And so then we talked, and he basically said, mental health is also a diagnosis. So why wouldn't you treat your mental health with all the resources that we have?
Right. And did you find, like in your second and third, because you'd already gone through it once in a certain way, that you talking with other women and other moms and parents was easier? Or did you still have guilt or stigma around it?
No, I thought it was easier because so after the birth of our first son, I joined MOPS, which is Mothers of Preschoolers. And I started talking to moms, and so many moms told me, oh, I felt like that. Oh, is that what that was? So it was almost like this silent thing that nobody was talking about, but so many people were going through it. So I kind of stopped caring what other people thought, and I started talking about it. Yeah. And a lot of people really, I think, could relate to me, and they were thankful that I would share my story, and I was able to help them feel less alone.
And to help them get treatment and help way sooner than had they stayed isolated and not talking about it.
Right, because we don't have to feel that way. There's so much treatment with mental health, and there's so many resources available that aren't, again, known to new moms or expecting moms.
Right. And the stigma is just huge, because here at the CAP Wellness Center, we're a prenatal wellness center here in San Diego. And we used to have a group. We wanted to have a maternal support group, and we called it the postpartum support group. But people weren't coming because they kind of thought it was like, oh, this is a postpartum depression group. And they didn't want to walk into the wellness center where they were going through their pregnancy and they took their birth classes and then like go down the hall to the depression group. So nobody came, right? And we switched around the wording. We're calling it the fourth trimester transition, or transition to motherhood group. And just that naming alone has made a difference. And so I applaud all of you doing what you're doing to take the stigma around it and say, just like Julie and Jen and yourself, Shelby, to get help sooner so you can enjoy motherhood sooner rather than suffering.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And Shelby's taken spreading the awareness one step further in her platform as Mrs. California.
Yeah, you have a huge platform, Shelby. Tell us more about that.
So, as Mrs. California, I really wanted to use my title to open doors of opportunity. And I think that if it can happen to me, it can happen to anyone. It doesn't matter your background or your history. And so I chose maternal health as my platform as a whole, because I think it's so important. Moms, we're raising the next generation, and I feel that we don't have to miss our babies' milestones, and we don't have to suffer through motherhood. There's help out there. And I think that's so important for us moms to stick together and encourage one another and really break the stigma. So that's why I chose maternal health, to be a maternal health advocate as my platform. And I actually went to DC last week, or a couple weeks ago, for Maternal Mental Health Week, which was such an empowering experience. I was able to meet with legislators and the California senators about the funding for maternal health and mental health as a whole. And it was just such an empowering experience. And I'm so sad that I didn't get involved sooner, but I'm glad I am now.
Right. I'm sure all of you feel the same way, of like that this has been going on for such a long, but you each have your own personal experiences with it that allowed this to crystallize perfectly for the 2018 event. And Dr. Singley, I want to go back and mention just briefly a little bit more about the dads being involved. Obviously, I'm a dad. I'm partial to making sure dads are supported as well. Fathers experience the same sort of depression and anxiety. And so how did the dad's part of things come along?
Because PSI, just as an umbrella organization, we take a whole family, father-inclusive approach to perinatal mental health. And so it's one of the things that I'm doing on the board. I'm very focused on fatherhood and fathers issues. So would say that in psychology, we say that a lot of times good research is me-search. And my interest began when I didn't personally struggle with the PMAD, my wife, but I did, in working with dads, start to see how common it is that dads will struggle both in pregnancy as well as postpartum. And a lot of times it's just not as, people don't look for it or will manifest it differently. And we're not used to thinking of men generally, or dads, as being in a one-down position or struggling. But the reality is there's a lot of that. And so I've been really thrilled to be able to do work highlighting the stigma and the experience of dads, and both PSI and I know Postpartum Health Alliance as well are very focused on involving the dads and helping them to get access to the resources they need, as well as being supportive to their partners who may be having difficulties.
All right. So for those of you listeners that are all over internationally, where can these people find a local event that's going on so they can get involved?
The PSI website has an interactive climb map. So folks can go to postpartum.net, and depending on what's going on with PSI, sometimes that's the landing page. You'll find the interactive map there, or you might just need to go up into the search bar and search for the climb. And you can find your state and your city and find the closest climb to you that way.
Okay, and I'll make sure that link is there for the show notes. And I'm sure every local event's going to be different and have different things going on, and at obviously different places. But tell us more about the San Diego event, when it is, where you're meeting, and what kind of things are going to be going on that day.
Sure. So we like to make the San Diego event really fun for the whole family. It's definitely kid friendly. We have, we're meeting at Kate Sessions Park on June 23rd. We'll be there at 9 a.m. and we'll have food and drinks. We have a bunch of really great raffle prizes that we'll be giving away, and lots of fun stuff for the kids. So we'll have face painting and music, and just lots of really family friendly things to do. And then we do just a short walk around the park and it's a paved walk. So it's good for strollers, and little ones and dogs can come. And we do the walk. It's like less than a mile, but yeah, so it's a really fun event.
Great. Well, I'm sure locally, wherever you are, there's going to be an amazing, like, kid-friendly event as well. Go onto the website, check it out. If you are here in San Diego, please come on out. K-Sessions down in Pacific Beach on June 23rd at 9 a.m. Julie, Dr. Singley, Shelby, Jen, thank you so much for being a part of this. And if you are interested in being a part of this where you are in your neck of the woods, I'll make sure those links are available in the show notes. And I really encourage you to get involved. So everyone, thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having us.
Thank you, Dr. J.
Hi, it's Dr. J again, and I want to thank you so much for listening to the podcast. It's something I really enjoy doing, and I, as a parent, learn a ton from these experts coming on and sharing their wisdom, so I hope you're getting a lot out of it too. And I want to share something else with you. I've created a guide called the 40 Ways to Connect with Your Baby During Pregnancy. It's full of simple things you can do on a day-to-day basis that will help strengthen that bond that you have with your baby. It's a free download. You can go to my website at drjwarren.com/40ways and just enter your email. I'll send it right to you. You can download it and start working on it right away. All of the research that I'm learning in the fields of epigenetics and attachment parenting is showing that the more bonded you are during your pregnancy with your baby, the better the birth is going to go and the better parenting is going to go, because you have that strong foundation, a strong connection to build upon. So go again to my website. It's drjwarren.com/40ways and get that free guide. And again, thanks for listening.